Just want to point out that Jean-Guy said, "Hey, Kev, looking sharp, buddy." Maybe he thought I was Tyler. I don't know. Who knows? Yeah. The other, I mean, just what I'm going to just loop just a tangent here, I guess, in terms of the other question, of course, when we talk about where the Canucks are going to finish is Demko. I mean, obviously you need goaltending. Where is Demko in your ranking of goaltenders in the Pacific Division?
In the Pacific? So
because Fleury's gone. Fleury's gone. He's gone to Chicago. So you got Leonard, Markstrom,
Grubauer in Seattle. I'm going to be bold here, and I'll say 2.
He's in 2 or 3 range. I think because you got in the Pacific.
You got Gibson,
Peterson, and Demko. I think are probably your top 3. Then you've got Leonard and Grubauer right there as well, and Markstrom, and then way back down there you've got Mike Smith. Let alone was Aiden Hill in San Jose. Yeah, I'd say top 3.
Yeah, I mean, I would say top half. I mean, it depends on where you're at with Markstrom, I guess, but.
And I think Markstrom's going to have a comeback season next season too. I think because of the injury and just I think potential miscommunication about like systems and whatnot that he had there in Calgary. I think he's going to have a better season this next season. So yeah, that top 5 really is kind of hard to differentiate. Like, I don't think there's anyone like head and shoulders above the rest.
Yeah, right now I'm seeing Vancouver, Calgary, Edmonton battling for second in the division. And I'm kind of right now Vancouver, Edmonton, Calgary battle in a wild card battle more. But I mean, it's really going to depend a lot on Markstrom and how they fit with Sutter. I mean, the Flames aren't quite. I mean, everyone's waiting on this. This franchise altering move in Calgary that hasn't happened yet, and we'll see about that. But that's right now what I'm sort of seeing.
Yeah, Kevin, you said earlier in the show here you're I don't know how bold of a prediction is, but you mentioned the Canucks and the possibility of being second in the division. I mean, I think given where they were last year, that's a big jump in the standings. For me, they're chasing a wild card spot probably, but if things go really well, 3rd place, I still think you're going to have Vegas and Edmonton there in the top 2.
I just think to look at the Pacific Division as a wide open division where, if this was the Central, I wouldn't have the Canucks that high, but in the Pacific, I could see the Canucks in a higher position.
Yeah, the Pacific.
I think one of those California teams is going to be better. Right? It's hard to imagine all 3 of them sucking this year. Right?
I think LA is probably the one that's going to pop out the most as far as having a resurgence.
I would agree.
Yeah.
Sorry, Sean, you were.
Yeah, I think it's wide open. I think it's even wide open 1 through 4 or 5. I don't think that Edmonton's has done enough to. That blue line is worse than it was last year, in my opinion. And I'm not sold on whether or not Mike Smith can be the guy again, can put up another renaissance year. I don't think Vegas is any better. I don't think they've addressed their issues up the middle, and they just traded. They gave away their Vezina Trophy candidate. Vezina Trophy winning goaltender. Yeah, like they just gave him away. So I think it's wide open. I think we will see some surprises, and LA could be one of them. Vancouver could be one of them. We don't know what's going on with Calgary. Like, can Calgary actually put something together. I think they've got the talent, but do they have the right mix? And that's the question we've had for years with them. So if they,
yeah, and I'm not sold that they're going to buy into whatever Daryl Sutter is putting down this year. I mean, there was a bit of a bump initially after the coaching change, and then it slid right back to the mediocre form that they were in prior to the coaching change. So, if I were a Flames fan, I don't know, I'd be reluctant with that.
They definitely brought in like Sutter type players in the offseason, though. So I think to that credit, they might gel a little bit more just because they have more players that play that style that Sutter likes. But we'll see.
I thought they fit the style a little bit more as the season went on. I just still with this team, there's just too much the inconsistency has to be weeded out for them. They are a good comparable sports wise right now would be the Toronto Blue Jays in the sense not like lots of talent, but you can't like ultimately there's going to be something that stubs their toe. That's kind of where I'm at. And the other thing with Vegas, the big story there was the loss of Fleury, but that trade of Ryan Reeves to the Rangers, that was a huge home ice advantage that the Vegas Golden Knights had. They are going to miss Ryan Reeves. That is do not sleep on that one for Vegas as well.
He was a heart and soul type player for them, so I can definitely see that being a decently sized hole. Whether they can replace him with something else, I'm not too sure.
I mean, if they calculated that he was headed for a decline, then the move is probably the right move. But yes, it's a point well made, and in terms of presence and just sort of an X factor for them. That's gone now.
And
he kind of made himself the Western Tom Wilson, if you will.
Yeah.
And also just the way things have been running in Vegas, that's interesting. That it is a little interesting just how they handled the Fleury trade, the Ryan Reeves, a lot of situations being handled there. I'm just
let's go back even further when they decided to change goalies and then change goalies again in the third round against Montreal. I mean, if I'm in that locker room, I'm losing confidence in the coaching.
And the whole Gallant Pete DeBoer thing.
Yeah.
It's very cold. It's very cold-hearted in Vegas. So, and I think there have been rumblings that the sort of the morale of the team and the locker room and the players isn't great because you've lost two big personalities in Fleury and Ryan Reeves in that locker room this year, and it wasn't. And I think there was how they did it. It wasn't the best. Didn't come across well. So I think that is something to look at. Let alone their because they went and traded for Nolan Patrick. So I think it might be, as I said, I think it's something to look at. I'm not sold on them being a guaranteed top 2 team in this division.
Yeah,
well, nothing's guaranteed, but you're looking at where they were last year. You'd have to think they're not gonna drop off too far.
I mean, you still have one of the better players in Mark Stone there for sure. There's still some talent there. Don't get me wrong, but it's an interesting situation to keep an eye on in Vegas.
Yeah.
I would say they're still a top tier-ish in the Pacific. It's just I think they're going to see a bit of a drop.
Yeah.
Yeah, and because they how far did they go? 6 games with Montreal? Is it 6? I think.
Yeah.
I mean, almost to the Stanley Cup final. Do we really think they're going to put that kind of a run together again and almost reach or even reach the Stanley Cup final next season? Yeah, I mean, we'll see. But if there's going to be a regression, the circumstances sure look like this. It could happen this coming season.
Yeah. Yeah, it just the Pacific Division is filled with a bunch of questions.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, and I think that's in large part why you've seen the Canucks get aggressive in the offseason here. They look at it and say, our normal division, the Pacific, is one that we're more competitive in, and then of course there's the Seattle factor there too, and the whole wanting to rivalry and all this, which the Canucks have definitely bought into from a bigger picture perspective. So you could see that, and of course last year they were making all the excuses about the schedule and travel and COVID and all this sort of thing, but. In a division which was very offensive oriented, that didn't work very well for the Canucks. So hopefully they're playing in some lower scoring games this year.